Another interesting development over the weekend is Bryce Harper. And we knew at the start of the season the Phillies did not put Harper on the 60-day injured list. That was just maintaining some flexibility depending on how things were going in his rehab. But he's been taking batting practice on the field on pretty much a daily basis for about 2.5 weeks, and really long home runs too. He's going to hit in a simulated game against Ranger Suarez, the Phillies pitcher who's rehabbing from an injury on Tuesday. So he's taking simulated at bats. And the Phillies manager, Rob Thompson, said over the weekend he doesn't think Harper will necessarily need a minor league rehab assignment. So this is my question for you, Scott. Do we see Harper back before the end of April? Yes or no?
That sounds early to me, but I think the point is his timetable is ahead of schedule. And look, I get it. We have to be careful with injury timetables because whenever they ask players, everybody's a superhero. Everybody's going to be back earlier than expected. I think this is one case where it's really going to happen. Also, Harper, I think I read that on Roto World that he was taking some work at first base too. We know obviously they lost Rhys Hoskins and they lost Hall, the replacement. So they must feel really good about where he's at if they're even considering putting him on the field, because the whole idea was like, oh no, he's way too valuable as a hitter. Let's not risk him in right field. I realize first base is, at the low end of the defensive spectrum, but if they're even considering that, that's a sign that they're not worried about his health. I think Harper for sure is going to be a first half return, and I could see it definitely being in May. April's too far for me, but I think a May return is in play, and I'd be surprised if we don't see him by June. So it's funny. I mentioned that Friends and Family League draft. I'm never the long-term injury draft and hold person, but I drafted Harper, and I said, look, I'm never the guy who does this. I'm going to do it. And I also drafted Tony Gonsolin. So I immediately filled up my IL spots. There's only 2 in that league. And like everybody else, I've run into more injuries. And I'm like kind of kicking myself for why did I do this? But then I see Harper coming back. I'm like, oh, that's why I did it. I just going to, keep my team treading water. And then Harper will, turn into MVP Bryce Harper and, shoot me up the standings. That's the hope anyway. Yeah. But here's one case where I think whatever we expected back, whatever the projection of games played was in March, I think Harper's going to blow it out of the water.
I totally agree. I think the last box that Harper really has to check is sliding head first. There's some danger there with the elbow.
Nobody should slide head first.
I know
anybody does it,
but Harper does it. You know what I mean? So I think that's the last thing that they want to check the boxes with sliding. First base is kind of a way down the road potential option. He will come back as a DH. He has not really started throwing with any intensity. That's something that, it's not going to preclude him from coming back strictly as a hitter. But yeah, I think the sliding thing is the box he has to check.
I will give you a little podcast trivia. I know you know the answer to this. Dear listener, what position did Bryce Harper play when he began his baseball career? You remember DJ, right?
I do remember. He was a catcher.
That's right. Bryce Harper is a catcher. And then they realized, like the Craig Biggio thing, well, wait, this guy's offense is way too valuable. Of course, I think Biggio was a Gold Glover at second base, and that's an important position too. But it's just funny how Harper was a catcher at one point in time, right fielder at one point in time. Now he's just really his position is just hitter, but he's so freaking valuable. That's, why not? Yeah. And even if the Phillies have to put out a defense that's kind of hard to watch sometimes and nobody really enjoys. Kyle Schwarber is really a DH playing the outfield, to be fair, but it's going to be even without Hoskins, it's going to be a fun softball team, man. They're going to score a ton of runs. I like how Alex Baum's gotten out of the box. Even though Stott never draws a walk, he's looked interesting in the leadoff spot.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah.
Philadelphia is a really fun team.